Good morning, friends. We are to start a lecture today. The topics for today's lecture, yes, of course, before I go on to the various topics that I have on store for today, the college bulletin, I would rather say subject change. The subject change notice has been finalized, and of course, the Google form should be in your groups, let us say by today evening or Monday morning. So you could change your subjects if required. As I told you the other day also, a few subjects will not allow you a change for. And of course, as far as medium change is concerned, nobody is going to get a medium from change from Marathi to English. If you want to shift from English to Marathi, yes, you are welcome. And the subjects which will not be allowed to change into is economics, history, and political science. If you want to opt out of these subjects, yes. Other subjects, the committee will decide how we are going to allot you the subject as such. I think we met last Saturday, and after that we are meeting today. We of course had a holiday yesterday, and day before yesterday we spoke on MOOCs. I did not get any responses on MOOCs much as such. I agree that there was some technical error on my side and the slides were a bit blur, but I rectified that by uploading the same PPT on SlideShare, and you could access that PPT there, and of course the commentary for the same is available on YouTube, the other day's lecture, that is. Well, going back to what we were doing last time, if you remember, we spoke about these numbers, okay, in the sense millions and billions on an international scale and lakhs and crores, as to how Indians adjust to that, and how lakhs, millions, and crores are in fact 5, 6, and 7 zeros added to one. And I told you all how to convert millions to lakhs and how to convert millions to crores as well. Just to repeat it in brief, all you can do is you add, when you add a zero to the number of millions, what you get is the number of lakhs. And when you cut a zero from the number of millions, you get the number of crores. We spoke about references, how we are supposed to be referencing. I got you the book other day, and you could do the same as far as the physical geography Strahler PDF that I have passed on to you. You can search for the glossary, you can search for the index, and of course you can go topic wise based on the syllabus. You could check the topics in the syllabus also. Of course, there is still time before we go into the syllabus. So you can, as I said, you can just keep gazing through the diagrams, beautiful diagrams, particularly the ones around climate, etc. And of course, we did speak about equinox and solstice positions. To add to one question that I had, that what would happen if the axis of the Earth would have been straight? Now, if we assume that this is the axis of the Earth, which is straight enough, okay, presently, of course, it is this way. Please remember that it is for our convenience that we say that the North Pole dips towards the sun or the South Pole dips towards the sun. Actually, nothing of that sort happens. It's basically relative. You must have read about the theory of relativity. You'll see that nobody changes, neither the sun changes, neither the earth changes. It's the position of the sun that changes. So if this is the sun and this is the earth, as it is going to go around, and by the time it comes here, it is this part that is nearer to the sun. And as this girl has asked me as to what would have happened if the axis would have been straight, it is so very obvious that the other day also I spoke about it, that the earth would have gone around the sun in this particular manner, and there would not have been much change as far as the weather and the climate on a larger scale. There would hardly have been any variety of climatic regions on the surface of this planet. Of course, if you remember the other day, I spoke to you about one of the courses that I had done with the University of Manchester, and they have this app, BYOE, Build Your Own Earth. I don't know how many of you all have visited this app or hunted for this particular app, but let me tell you that those of who are interested in climate change and what happens when one change happens and how does it affect the other issues The BYOE, the Build Your Own Earth app, is a fantastic innovation, I would say, into imaginary world as to what would happen if these changes would have taken place, or these changes do come about, right from the axis to the changes in the proportion of gases. What if nitrogen goes much larger or it gets smaller in percentage? What if oxygen tends to be larger in percentage, and so on and so forth? It's a fantastic thing, and of course, we could have a discussion on that. Going back to equinox positions, if those of who have been tracking the developments in our WhatsApp group will know that we have been tracking those places which are having 12 hours day and 12 hours night, right from when we started, say around 26th of September, from 26th or 27th of September, we started with Dharka, and yesterday I think we came up till Bengaluru, and you'll see that day by day it is shifting south, and within a few days it will just be across the Indian peninsula. Let us see how many days it takes, and after that we will of course be yeah, some students the other day did post about what other things can we do as far as geography is concerned. And in fact, I would go further and say not only geography, you could do this with other subjects also. Uh, you could read NCRT books, NCERT books, 11th and 12th standard in geography, and of course, looking into your respective syllabus, you could read the very same from for the other subjects also. In fact, you'll see that these NCRT copies are downloadable and they are available on their site. So you just visit their site and you could download a copy of that respective subjects NCRT for 11th and 12th standard. Those who are doing competitive, I would say that these NCRT books are going to be very important for you all, basically because of the fact that when it comes to your general studies paper in UPSC particularly, a large number of questions are based on the context that you have in the NCRT books. So NCRT is one. Secondly, those who are not much confident about their English, it is high time that you have a dictionary. Okay, those who are from the vernacular medium but have put up the guts together to start learning in English, I would say English Marathi dictionary also is going to be equally important for you all. As far as English dictionary is concerned, an Oxford dictionary is fine for the purpose. Then, when it comes to other basic books, those who are really looking forward in geography, I would say that there are two small volumes of around say 300 pages each, which speak on what is called a geography made simple. In fact, made simple is a series for literally every subject, and it initially was an international publication coming from England. I think in India it is being published under Rupa Publishing House. So you could just search for Made Simple. And as far as our subject, that's geography, is concerned, Made Simple. Now, geography, I told you, is a very vast subject, and it encompasses various aspects of life. As a consequence, they could not. Now, most of the books you'll find, you'll have all the subject compressed in one Made Simple volume as such. But as far as geography is concerned, given the scope, you have the natural part of geography and you have the human part of geography. What they have done, you'll have two volumes. Of one volume is physical geography made simple, and then the other volume is human geography made simple. Those who are looking for a career in geography, these two volumes are a must. They give you all the geography in a nutshell. Um, those who are looking into geography as far as an UPSC option is concerned, or doing your civil services, for these people also I would say these Made Simple series in your respective subject of specialization is going to be equally important also. So that is it. As far as making notes is concerned, this was another question that one student had posed the other day. Sir, how do we make notes? Now, let me be very frank about this, that as far as making notes is concerned, there is no single style as far as making notes is concerned. So, because it depends on how you learn a particular subject. Now, some students write every word, so that could be the style of making notes. Some students write important words. And in fact, when I was in college and we were doing the civil services UPSC, we were told by experts that it should be such that the whole of your syllabus, that's UPSC syllabus, should fit on one single A4 size paper. Say what they told us, that you take an A4 size paper and you fold it, and you should be able to put all your subject in one, two, and then the other two sides on the other side of the paper as such. So you should be able to compress your understandings of that particular subject, and this goes for all the subjects, not exclusively for geography also. Now this comes handy when in a subject like geography, let me think of, say, a question. Now, a question as simple as define physical geography. Now, definition of a physical geography could come up in 20 words as well. At the same time, there could be an answer wherein you're supposed to write an answer to a length of around 50 words. What is physical geography? So the same theme, I'm telling you, you got to expand it to how much? 50 words. There could be a detailed question. What do you understand of the scope and significance of physical geography? Now, in that case, what happens? You're supposed to be writing 300 words. Concept is the same. You have to expand it to 300 words. So when you make your notes, you take important points in such a way that if required, you should be able to compress that. If required, you should be able to just pull it to a particular length, and further required, you should be in a position to stretch it to its broadest possible length. So that is the skill that a student should develop, and your notes should be such that they should be guiding lines into whether I should be compressing this answer, whether I should be expanding this answer as such. So that is as far as making notes is concerned. Of course, I will be giving you regular inputs as to how you should be preparing your own notes. I would suggest, I have seen many college going students in my life who normally tend to write down all their college work in one single book. They carry one single book to the college and they keep writing it as they switch from one subject lecture to the other. I would suggest you maintain a separate book for here is where you start in attempting to make notes. You should have an individual book for individual subject. Secondly, you should place a date. Every time you start afresh, you should be writing the date of that particular day and you cover the points. Okay. Thirdly, I would say that whatever you do now, some of you all would be in a habit of taking down points as I'm telling them just across the table. But that is not enough, let me tell you. You have to revisit your points. It may be that some things that you understood at that particular point of time may not be clear after you revisit this. So you have to elaborate on those aspects also. So revisiting and elaborating a particular aspect, if you are not able to get back to it, you would require referencing. Maybe something I told on a particular day at a particular point of time requires more elaboration, so you'll have to do a bit of referencing. Okay, so sir said these things, but I have found these particular things in addition. So you could just underline these, that this is your own work. And as you read through, of course, this would get interesting. As I keep saying every time, it is not necessarily only geography. In fact, note making, referencing, whatever I've spoken about, it tends to be the same in all the subjects, whichever subject. Even in a language thing, okay, you're learning literature and you could do about it the same way. Then yeah, a few basic things that we have done in our earlier lectures and need a more further explanation would include one thing that I would like to refer to here is when we say that the Earth's orbit around the sun is elliptical. Obviously, when it goes elliptical, there is going to be a position wherein the Earth is going to be literally nearer to the sun and literally away from the sun. The other day we spoke about it being at a distance of 148 million kilometers and 152 million kilometers farthest. Now, these two positions have been given a particular terminology as far as geography is concerned. I just switched on your comments, and Vaishnavi says that on Diksha app, all ncrt books are available. Yes, so this is a good information for all of us that it's available on Diksha app. You'll see that the QR codes also in your respective textbooks, 10th standard, 11th standard, 12th standard, they also give you further explanations on certain concepts, so you can go there also. Coming back to the fact that when we spoke about the earth being nearer and away, and how do we identify, and what is the terms that we use to identify these positions. If you have read your geography books in earlier class, you'll see that it is these two positions are called as the aphelion and the perihelion positions of the earth in relation to the sun. Now, what is aphelion and what is perihelion? Helios, the word comes from Helios. Helios in Greek language is fire. The sun is assumed to be a ball of fire. So aphelion and perihelion. Ap is away from it and perihelion is near to it. Now I find many students and myself, I was confused about it to a significant level when I was doing it as a student. So I decided to coin a easier way to remember this. Say, let us take the A from aphelion. And if you're referring to it in English, A stands for away. So aphelion is away from the sun. And perihelion, let us say in Hindi, P stands for pass. के उस आदमी के पास जाकर मैं खड़ा रहा, खड़ी रही. In the sense, and you could remember it in that particular way. Peri, P starts with a P. P initiates pass, so the Earth gets pass closer to the Sun. So that is called as the perihelion position, and you have the aphelion position. Now there are two similar words again, which are called as the apogee and the perigee. Now remember, the heavenly body you are referring to in context to is the core part of the word. Say we are referring to the earth with reference to the sun. That is why we said aphelion and perihelion. Now apogee and perigee are positions that the moon attains in with reference to the earth, and that is why, because it is with reference to the earth. When the earth was in reference to the sun, we called it Helios. When the moon is in reference to the earth, we call it G. So a perigee, obviously, the other things remain the same. P stands for pass. So the when the moon comes nearest to the earth, it is called as the perigee position. And when the moon moves away from the earth, it is called as the apogee position. I can think of one more confusing concept in human geography, particularly in relation to tourists or in relation to people who are traveling abroad or they are entering into a new country as such. You must have come across this immigration. Immigration starts with an I-M-M-I-G-R-A-T-I-O-N, immigration. And we have emigration, E-M-M-I-G-R-A-T-I-O-N, emigration. And those of who have been to airports will see those sections wherein you have the emigration and the immigration counters. Now, how do we understand this? Now, immigration stands with an I. So if you are moving into a country, you are immigrating. If you are exiting, E, emigration, if you are exiting a particular country, you are an emigrant for that particular country. Now, just to put it in an example, now let us say that tomorrow you get a scholarship and you are traveling to the US for, say, a couple of years to study a particular course. Now, what should be happening in a particular case? You go to the airport, and then you should be in a position to, of course, you go for your emigration check. That means you are exiting India, so you are going to go to the emigration counter. Okay, you sit in the plane and you travel all the way to the US. When you land at some airport in the US, you are going to be an immigrant for that. So you are immigrating into the United States. So if you're going away from India, you are going to be an immigrant from here. And of course, you are going Well, some technical issues, and I was away for some time. I think there was some glitch as far as the internet issue was concerned. So we were speaking about immigration and immigration, and I told you the I stands for incoming, and the X stands for E stands for outgoing. So immigrant, you are going out. Immigrant, you are coming into a particular country. So that was another thing that I wanted to speak about. Then uh, another issue that some students had raised. I think I remember a question that a student had asked for as to um, why is the Arctic Ocean now called as the Arctic Sea? Uh, Now, I'm not in a position to give you the exact technical details, but what I understand as far as the Arctic Ocean versus the Arctic Sea is concerned is with times change, you'll see that science tends to upgrade itself. And then they have all these um, terms and conditions for a particular thing to be decided as a particular object. Now, oceans normally tend to be very large water bodies. Probably at a point of time, we did not know how large the Arctic Ocean was, and that's why, because we found it to be a very large body of water, we tended to call it the Arctic Ocean. But eventually, of late, we have realized that it is not as large as the other oceans, say particularly the Atlantic or the Indian or the Pacific, and possibly they say the oceanographers who are researching on all these aspects, they have come down to call this as Arctic Sea. Of course, there is still a bit of, I would say, a debate onto that, and some people still carry calling it as the Arctic Ocean, but others do refer to it as the Arctic Sea. And um, in reference to this, then we come across to the next end of or the next pole, that is the Antarctic. Now let me tell you that the word Antarctic is basically I would say a mispronunciation of what once upon a time used to be called as the Antarctic. Okay, one is the Arctic pole, and the South Pole was supposed to be called as the Antarctic. That is the pole which is opposite to the Arctic Ocean. But over the period of time, the world started calling it as the Antarctic, and now we, in fact, spell it as the Antarctic continent and the Antarctic pole, and so on and so forth. Um Further on, with reference to the Antarctic continent, which is the only uninhabited continent, I would rather say which was the only uninhabited continent till the last 2 3 decades. Presently, you will see that every country, literally at least I would say 10 to 15 countries, have their research stations. India has three research stations on this. Now, the obvious question would be why three? The reason being that the first of the stations that we had was not on hard surface. So it tended to sink down into the ice. And the same, in fact, has happened with many such research stations. And of course, over the period of time, technology changes. So you have to upgrade your machinery, and you need to look for new areas to put up your machines, and so on and so forth. So Gangotri, Maitri, and the other issues. All these are the names of the three research stations that India has planted onto the continent of Antarctica. Uh, then, coming to the fact that till recently, I would say, if those from the SSC board who would have read their geography text well, in around 206 till 206, the world had what, three major oceans. That was the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and the Indian Ocean. But something happened in 2006, and we added one more ocean to the whole surface of this planet. Not that we actually carved out a new ocean for ourselves, but what happened was that it came to the notice of scientists that the cold temperatures of the Antarctic continent, they dominate the waters around the Antarctic continent to such an extent that they have an ecosystem of its own. And by then, scientists had started studying into another branch which is called as the cryosphere. Okay, CRYOSPHER. You know what is the cryosphere? If you are following satellite technology, you must have heard about or read about cryogenic engines. It is basically the art of generating energy at very low temperatures. That is called as cryogenics. So, till recently, while we spoke about the Earth being made up of four major spheres, and there is where we are going to enter the theory part or the syllabus part of our syllabus as such, that you have the land part that is called as the lithosphere, the water part that is called as the hydrosphere, the air part that is called as the atmosphere, and of course you have the living part that is called as the biosphere. For quite some time, you'll see that scientists used to revolve around these four spheres. It is very recently that they have added one more sphere to this, and that is called as the cryosphere. It is the study of life and study of dynamics and science at very low temperatures. As that brought to for the a requirement that all the waters exactly around the Antarctic continent were so cold that they were required to be studied separately. So, a mathematical way of looking at it was that they decided that, okay, let us do one thing, that all the waters of the present oceans, but beyond 60 degrees of south latitude, beyond 60 degrees of south latitude, would be called by a particular name. So what they did is they took the 60 degrees south latitude, which would be just short of the Antarctic Circle, 66.5 degrees. And they said that all the waters from 60 degrees up to the, let us say, shores of the Antarctic continent will be called by a new name, and that is called as the Southern Ocean. So what is the Southern Ocean? It is the waters or the cold waters from 60 degrees south latitude in the southern hemisphere, of course, all the way to the shores of the Antarctic continent. Why has this been done? This has been done basically because of the fact that the Antarctic continent is so cold and it inflicts its coldness into these waters, that these waters, they are seen to in fact circumnavigate, or they go in a wavy pattern all around this mm, Antarctic continent, and you'll see that when you come across cold substances, they don't mix with other substances. So it has been observed that these very cold waters, they are in a world of their own. They hardly mix with any other waters. Let us say the warmer waters from the lower latitudes. So scientists thought it appropriate that they should be identifying this very entity separately. Now you'll see that from a point wherein we geographically classified the continents on one side, and we geographically classified the oceans that separated these continents, we have come to a scientific base as to very cold waters beyond 60 degrees. Now, don't go by the word 60 degrees. Actually, you'll see that there is no watertight compartment there saying that, okay, 61 degrees is cold and 59 degrees is warmer. Okay, it is a conventional thing that they have taken up, that okay, 60 degrees latitude and onwards is going to be very cold. That is how there is no hard and fast rule that at 60 you are going to have the division, and at 59 is going to be warmer and 61 is going to be very cold. Nothing like that. It is basically a human convention that we tend to come up with. So that is as far as the Southern Ocean is concerned. So we have discussed about various things. We started from the Arctic Sea, and how the Arctic Ocean now tends to be called as the Arctic Sea, and how the Antarctic is called as the Antarctic, and the uninhabited continent and the waters around this are very cold, and that is why they came to be called as the Southern Ocean. So that is the story about the Southern Ocean. Now, there is one more thing that we were discussing the other day. If you remember, when I spoke about populations, and I said that in Australia, 90% of Australia resides in 6 of its cities. And some students had written down the names of these 6 cities, but they missed out on a few. There are a few interesting facts that I want to share with you all as far as Australia is concerned. The 6 cities that I was referring to were Melbourne, Sydney. These two are the largest of the cities on the Australian continent. And then you have the third largest city, which is Brisbane. And the fourth largest city is Perth. And the fifth largest city is Adelaide. Now, those who follow cricket will know that all these four places, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide, and five places, sorry, have their own cricket grounds, and they are very famous also. And the sixth place is the capital of Australia. Most of you all must be under an misconception that Melbourne is the capital of Australia. No, Melbourne is not the capital of Australia. Adelaide is the capital of Australia. So the six major cities of Australia are Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, and Canberra. Six major cities in Australia. And the other day we also spoke about Darwin, and I said that the distance between Melbourne and Darwin is longer than the distance between Melbourne and the coast of Antarctica down south. We spoke about the population. Now, interestingly, you will see that how much do you think is going to be the population of Australia? Did any one of you all bother to just search for the population of Australia the other day when we were referring to, and we spoke about a lot of population and the density of population in Australia? The population of Australia, let me share with you, is just 2.5 crores. Just imagine, just 2.5 crores. Now, if we are speaking about 2.5 crores, how many millions would that be? 2.5 crores is obviously going to be 25 million. And how many lakhs would that be? 250 lakhs. So 250 lakhs is the population of Australia. You say it in the international connotation, that's 25 million is the population of Australia. And as far as crores is concerned, 2.5 crores. That is how, that is just an example I wanted to share to how to use lakhs and moving to millions and then moving to crores as such. But how you will see that it's a country which is 2.5 times large as India, and 2.5 crores is just some amount more than the MMR, the Mumbai Metropolitan Region, the largest metropolitan region in India. 2.5 crores or 2.25 crores is the population of the MMR, which includes main Mumbai, suburban Mumbai, and all those suburbs around its new Mumbai, etc. The Mumbai metropolitan region is 2.25 crores. And the whole of Australia, just imagine, is 2.5 crores all put together. And things are further more interesting. They get further more interesting. If I take the two largest cities in Australia, and namely, as I said, Melbourne, which is 49 lakhs, and Sydney, which is 52 lakhs. So you add 49 and 52, it's 101 lakhs. So out of 2.5 crores of population residing on the Australian continent, just imagine 50% of them reside in just two cities of Australia. And then you add these 22 lakhs of Brisbane and 19 lakhs of Perth, and of course 13 lakhs of Adelaide put together. They are, these five cities nearly account to around 75-80% of the population of Australia. And that is why it is always said that when you are traversing across the continent of Australia, it's a very weird continent, let me tell you. So Pacific Ocean means, yes, Prashant Mahasagar म्हणजेच Pacific Ocean संदीप, ज्याला आपण मराठीमध्ये प्रशांत महासागर म्हणतो त्यालाच आपण इंग्लिशमध्ये पॅसिफिक ओशन असं म्हणतो. Anyway, going back to Australia, it is always said about in Australia in a sarcastic way that when you are traversing across Australia, particularly when you go into the interior parts of Australia, because all these cities are along the margin. Now, there is again why you have these major cities along the margin. And in fact, let me share you one more thing. This is how I'm going to open up geography to you. It's not only Australia. You go to any city, or I would say majority of the cities in the southern hemisphere, you will see that most of the major cities in majority of the countries have a coastal location. I want you all to find an answer as to why should it be that these countries in the southern hemisphere have their cities having having a coastal location. It's very interesting to study about this. There is a perfect logic and reason behind that. I want you all to think about it first, and then I will come back to speaking about why do we have it. So coming back to Australia, all these cities have their locations. See, Perth is on the western coast of Australia, while all these others are either on the eastern coast of Australia or the southeastern coast of Australia. The interiors hardly have a few towns, I would call them, not even cities. here and there. And you must have studied about mineral resources of Australia and the Kalgoorlie and the Coolgardie mines, the diamond and the gold mines, right in the heart of Australia. Or you must have heard about or read about the Ayers Rock. I want you all to search for these places so that you grow with geography as such. So, sorry, I was referring to the interiors of Australia and how people say that when you're traveling into the interior parts of Australia, you may come across the weirdest animal on this planet in Australia, but you may not come across a human being. For days together, you may travel and you may not come across a human being. This could obviously be true basically because 90% of Australia is all along the coastal regions of Australia. And this could leave not more than a few lakh people in the interior parts of Australia, which in fact happens to form the major part of Australia. And those unique animals include kangaroo and an ostrich and a pygmalion and so on and so forth. There are a few more animals which are so very indigenous to Australia, and you don't find them on other parts of other parts or other continents. The reason for that again lies in geography. When we are going to do the theory of the Wegener's theory of continental drift, and when we speak about the plate tectonics, which is the latest theory about continents, etc. You see that Australia is separated out as an island. Yes, it's a continent, but it's a huge island. It's separated out, and it did not come in contact with any other continents for a significant period of time. So whatever life was left on Australia stayed there, and of course, over the period of time, as it evolved, it tended to stay as it is, and the animals also, because they were not disturbed in their natural sense. And I'll get you one more example with regards that. By the way, Rameshwar says that Australia is driest of any continent on the earth other than Antarctica. Yes, surely Australia is one of the driest continents, but continent-wise, percentage-wise, you'll see that the area of which the Sahara Desert occupies is larger. But then on the African continent, you have huge amounts of rains in the equatorial region, the Congo, etc. So that equates it out, Ramesh. Yes, you have very dry, Australia being very dry. And in fact, you must have read about this in the newspapers that it could be climate change, it could be human interference. But for the last few years as such, the summers in the respective continents, particularly the drier parts, have been very severe in those countries, in the sense that Australia has been seeing these forest fires, okay, for the last couple of years. And that has been a very serious issue in Australia. And in fact, this year also, they had the same problem. And in fact, the summer of the Northern Hemisphere, California and the US had this very problem. Those who are following international news must have read about this. By the way, Sachin says that import and export becomes easy. But yeah, that's one of the major reasons why you have major cities. But then my question would be, why is it that your major cities in the Northern Hemisphere don't have a coastal location? Why is it that major cities in the Southern Hemisphere have a coastal location? You think about the geography and you'll get the answer by yourself. Yes, import and export becomes easy, and the further answer to this lies in this very statement, that is import and export becomes very easy. And in fact, I think I posted it in our group, or whether we were not in a group that particular point of time. The Death Valley in California this year experienced one of the highest temperatures. Now, scientists disagree on this, in the sense they say that they did not calculate the temperature, or they did not measure the temperature right way on that particular day. But the temperatures, it was said that on a particular day, I have posted it as my Facebook post also, that on that particular day, the temperature was 54 degrees centigrade in Death Valley, California. Scientists say that it was not 54 and it was 52, but the very fact that it crossed 50 degrees is very significant. Now, again, whether this is climate change, whether this is natural climate change, or this is human-oriented climate change, is something that needs to be discussed in further more detail as such. And well, coming back to the fact that these indigenous and exotic animals on the continent of Africa, Australia. Of course, you have these animals. Every continent has its own indigenous and exotic animals. Say, for example, giraffe is an animal which is found only on the African continent. You don't find giraffes in other parts, and there is some geography behind that. If you remember, I said that I have these stories of various climatic regions, how they evolve, and how does life grow, or rather, how has life grown in those in these rather respective continents as such. That's a story for some other day. We will, of course, set up an a session for that as to how different climates have their own types of animals. Say, for example, crocodiles are actually limited to a particular area, and you will see that some animals are so very limited to the hippopotamus is limited to a particular climatic region, not a continent as such, but a particular climatic region. So this is how geography. If you understand geography, you can understand the evolution of animals uh, in that particular area. Yash says that places near the sea have moderate climate as compared to places which are far away from the sea. So climate and atmosphere, I would say climate and weather does does have to play a role. Again, I would say you have given me 4 to 5% of my answer. Uh, I will speak about this at some other point of time since we are in some other issue. I will remember this and I will clarify this issue at a particular point of time. I would say I would partially give you my answer. This is to do more with human population and the output of the human population as to why we have these cities located in coastal region. Yes, moderate climate is of course, but moderation of climate is beneficial for some type of products and it may not be beneficial for other type of products. So there could be other reasons into that also. Speaking about these animals and how they are different and how Australia is so very different, uh, as far as its animals go. And of course, then you can, another thing about Australia is the Great Barrier Reef, uh, which is off the east coast of Australia. And there is one more very significant thing about this coast of Australia, which I would be speaking when I speak about the geological time scale with you all. Um, there is a very interesting documentary about the history of the earth which possibly we may take up when we start our colleges on campus, or we are thinking of coming up with a film club in the geography department, and we would be screening these interesting documentaries with of course commentary on them, and then we as teachers would also be explaining that, but that is for some other day when we start on campus college as such. Keep this in mind, and if I forget, please remind me that we have to screen all these movies also. uh, we are nearing our lecture and I would like to uh, conclude with another interesting thing that I always share with my students of geography, that when we speak about rivers, you must have uh, come across three terms associated with rivers: the longest river, the largest river, and of course the largest river system. Let me tell you, there are three different rivers which go by these three terms, that is the longest river, the largest river, and the largest river system. Now, of these, the easiest one, of course, is the longest river. We all know that the longest river is the Nile. But let me tell you that the Nile is just a few 100 kilometers longer than the Amazon. That means that the Amazon is equally long, but given the actual length, the Nile, of course, exceeds the length of the Amazon by a few 100 kilometers, and that too I will be discussing in detail when I speak about geography as a subject. Maybe next week we should be starting with our regular course. And what is the largest river? Now, as I said, the Amazon is the largest river. What is that fact of nature? What is that fact of science that makes the Amazon the largest river? Large in the sense the amount of water that the river carries. Any river that carries the largest amount of water is going to be called as the largest river. and we do measure it in a term which is called as discharge. What is the discharge of a particular river? And in fact, all throughout the monsoon, you must have been studying about or hearing about these terms on news channels, etc. That so much water was discharged from the Koyna Dam, and so much water was discharged from the Jayakwadi Dam, and so much water was discharged from say XYZ Dam in some part of India. So it's basically the water that is let loose from a particular point. Now, Amazon is a river in the world which is called as the largest river because the discharge of the Amazon, as far as water is concerned, is one of the largest. And of course, there is geography behind this. You'll see that the location of the Amazon, if you see, it is more so located in the equatorial region. Equatorial region, we know, have a lot of has a lot of rainfall. So all this rain drains through the Amazon, and of course, it opens up into the Caribbean Sea. Now, it is so said that the amount of water that tends to be discharged from the Amazon, if you keep that water on one side, and then you take the next 9 largest rivers of the world, Amazon on one side, and the rest 9 rivers, all the water put together. Now, it could include the Mississippi, and the Nile, and the Ganga, and the Brahmaputra, and the Congo. Okay, all these rivers put together. Okay, the water that discharges from all these rivers put together is just a small amount larger than the amount of water let out by the Amazon singly. That is the size of the uh, Amazon, and no wonder it is called as the largest river of the world. To give you one more fact, you'll see that when the river and the sea meet, of course, you have those deltas, etc. And seawater is saline, but river water, we know, is going to be um, fresh water. Now, it is so said that the force of the water, one, and the amount of water that is released at the mouth of the river Amazon is so much that you travel 200 kilometers into the ocean. And I have not verified this, and this needs to be verified on Google. But this is something that I've heard about the Amazon, that if you travel 200 kilometers into the ocean from the mouth of the Amazon, and you take a cup of water from that point and you sip it, it will still taste you fresh. It will not taste you saline. 200 kilometers into the ocean, let me tell you. That's a very interesting fact, and that gives you the scale of the amount of water that actually, the fresh water that is flushed into the oceans from the Amazon. So the longest river is the Nile, and the largest river is the Amazon. And then you come to the largest river system. Which is the largest river system? It is all those small rivulets, etc., that put together. When you put them together, you form a drainage network of a particular river, and the whole area that that particular river occupies, right, from some top of some mountain to its mouth, and all the minutest areas from which form the catchment area or the drainage basin of that particular river. uh, Going by those statistics, you'll see that the Mississippi Missouri river system of the United States of America is the largest river system in the world. Now, some scientists separate out the Mississippi and the Missouri, but because the Missouri, in fact, is a branch of the Mississippi River, normally geomorphologists tend to put it together, and the whole area that is occupied by, or I would say drained by, the waters of the Mississippi and Missouri is the largest as far as the total area in square kilometers or square miles, whatever you take. It's the largest river basin in the world. So the three facts about rivers as such in geography: longest river, the Nile, 6,400 something kilometers. Amazon, it is not that short of Nile, but it is the largest river, as I said. And the Mississippi Missouri system together is the largest river system of the world. So the River Murray in Australia is the longest river. Yeah, Australia's longest river is the River Murray, and then you have its tributary called as the Darling River, and the Murray-Darling basin, as it is called, which in fact is known for the grasslands and the major wheat produce in Australia. This fact is brought to us by Rameshwar. So that is all I would say for today. Yes, I did not speak about coral reefs. That was one question. That's the only question I suppose is remaining. And then I would leave you with a trivia question as to I want you all to identify. We do normally use these terms so very regularly, but I want you all to identify the difference between these terms. Try to understand. And these tend to be questions for interview questions and otherwise competitive exam questions also. I'll give you 4 5 terms and I want you all to identify what is the difference between them. Great Britain is one, England is one, United Kingdom and Commonwealth countries. What is the similarity or the dissimilarity between these terms? Great Britain, Britain, England, United Kingdom, and Commonwealth countries. These 5 terms, I leave you with these 5 terms and just try to look up for what this is. This is, of course, going to brush up your knowledge and your information about geography and other aspects as far as the regional geography of the world is concerned. That's all for today. We're going to meet next week once again, and probably next week we'll start our regular lectures. That means having all 3 lectures. That's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday lectures as well. Thank you for being with me today for today's lecture. Have a happy weekend. Stay safe and stay away from Corona. Thank you very much.